Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to be focusing largely on breath. Breath is the first movement pattern. Inhale, exhale, right? That's the movement pattern that all of our other movements are built upon. So if we don't have good capacity, functional capacity, a stability in our breath, then we are not going to be able to maintain good movement built off of that breath. So today is going to be kind of focusing at that level, so it's going to be a lot slower, a lot less big movements are going to be a lot smaller. Couple of caveats that I want to have are when we get deep into our breath work, breath is tied to sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, so it's going to have a deep connection to our emotional state. So if you're prone to anxiety, fear, or any other kind of emotional process, then I want to kind of be sensitive to that. I don't want to trip into states of anxiety, states of fear, states of anger by doing too deep of breath work too fast. So this is a class that I want to kind of go slow on, and if you're feeling any kind of emotional overwhelm, then tone back. It's okay to bow out. Turn the video off and just work on grounding and reconnecting. The other thing I kind of want to pay attention to is how deep of a breath that we're taking. We're going to be working on really filling up and expanding out, especially through our core, through our crocodile breath. There's a depth in that breath, but at the same time, if we are fully breathing all the way in and all the way out over and over again, after about 6 to 10 breaths, a little bit more likely to get dizzy, to feel a little faint. I don't want to be at that level of breath through the whole class. So there's going to be times where we're filling up big and broad, as big as we can, and then we're toning it down, but we're continuing to expand through this section, even if it's not the fullest level of breath. And the last thing is our rules of pain still apply. Just because our movements are going to be smaller doesn't mean that I'm okay with moving into pain. In fact, I want to be that much more sensitive to pain, and maybe more sensitive to both the physical pain it hurts to move into something, as well as what may come up as emotional or even spiritual pain. If we're feeling in a heightened emotional state, then I want to tone back, breathe a little softer. Again, it's okay to turn off the video and just sit and ground on your own. And if you do find that after doing the class, doing some of the stuff in this class, that you are in a little bit of an overwhelmed state, feel free to reach out to me. So with all that, let's get started. We are going to start on our back just with our crocodile breathing. So making our nice big C-shaped hands. Thumbs are going to go into the low back, side of the palms pressing into that side body, and index fingers pressing into our abdominals. And I want to think of those C-shaped hands as somewhat of clamps. As we exhale, we're going to squeeze those hands in ever so slightly so that we have some resistance to inhale and expand out into. We're working on getting the neurology of that breath through our abdominal core. Our abdominal core is not just our belly, it's not just our breathing into the front, it's also being able to expand out through the sides and into our low back area. Like a crocodile or a balloon, I want to fill up that whole section evenly on the inhale, and I want to feel it full exhale as we draw our navel into spine. So placing our hands below the rib cage and above the pelvis in that nice meaty section of our abdominal core. And we're going to inhale in through the nose, filling up that space. Exhale out through the mouth. And as you exhale, drawing that navel into the spine. It's almost like your belly button is pressing the spine down into the floor, but it's also kind of moving up your spine, like it's moving down and upwards towards your chest. Then on that inhale, we're coming right back in to fill up, to press out into all 6 points of contact on our hand. I want to feel that breath go into the index fingers, through the abdominals, into the side of the palm, through the side body, and into the low back, into that thumb. And we're going to get a good 5 to 10 breaths, working into a deeper breath on each one. I don't want to start with a big breath. I want to build into a big breath. And see how evenly can you expand on your inhale. So full exhale all the way out. Let your hands squeeze in. And then inhale, expanding that midsection out. And kind of notice where that breath goes easily and where that breath feels difficult to fill in. More than likely, it's difficult to fill in through the side and into that low back. Or you may feel it more difficult to breathe into one side compared to the other. If you're noticing any areas where it's difficult to breathe into, you can stimulate that area by pressing into it a little bit more firmly with your hand, and then intentionally breathing into that pressure. Once we've got this breath fairly well activated, we can allow our hands to drop to the side. And let's get 2 or 3 more breaths in, but see if you can feel that expansion without your hands in place. Can you still get that expansion into all the front, side, ends of the low back? And then we're very slowly going to transition into a quadruped position, or hands and knees. Getting into hands and knees, we're going to spread our fingers out nice and wide, grounding palms and extending the elbows fully without locking. And go ahead and let your toes tuck, especially the big toe. And from here, we're going to come back into that breath. Inhaling into our belly, feel that belly kind of expand down towards the floor, but also feeling that breath into the side body and into the low back. And as you exhale, draw navel fully into the spine. With each inhale, see if you can expand a little bit deeper for about 2 or 3 breaths. And then we're going to start focusing a little bit more on movement. Now, on the next inhale, as you breathe into the belly, start to allow your pelvis to slightly rotate forward down to the floor. Notice how that draws the breath a little bit more into the belly space, and it's a little harder to get into the low back. And then as you exhale, draw that navel in and scoop the pelvis lightly. We don't have to go to maximum range to start. I simply want to feel the pelvis tilting forward on the inhale, and exhale, scooping underneath lightly. And with each one, we can slowly build that breath a little deeper, filling up that belly space a little bit more, and allowing the pelvis to tilt a little bit more. And on the exhale, seeing if we can get a little bit more scoop. Notice if you're able to feel some stretch into that abdominal space on your inhale. And on your exhale, as you scoop, can you feel some stretch into that low back space? I don't want to go to maximum range. I don't want to get pinch in the low back. I'm not trying to get a maximum stretch. I simply want to feel it stretching. I'm not trying to make it stretch. And as we have this nice breath going in and out, I want to get a little bit of movement into the wrist. So we're just going to slightly rock forward into our wrist. And then as we rock back, I want to have that big toe tucked. So we're also feeling our hips sink to heels and feeling a little bit of load into the big toe joint. We're going to inhale as we rock forward onto our wrist, filling up that belly. Again, pelvis is tilting forward. Exhale, we're rocking back and loading into the toes as we lightly scoop the pelvis. And we're just going to get 5 to 10 simple breaths. This does not need to be a maximum inhale, maximum exhale. But I do want to feel a good effort to expand into that abdominal section on the inhale and to feel the belly draw in on the exhale. And I want to make sure we are moving at the speed of our breath. So as I'm coming forward is when I'm inhaling, as I'm going back, exhale is that light tilt of the pelvis. We'll come back to center. Now I want to bring hands forward a good ways. This is where I want my nice sticky gecko-like hands. Fingers are still spread nice and wide and the elbows are active. Kind of want to be pressing downward into the floor lightly. As we inhale into that belly space, we're continuing to allow the pelvis to slightly tilt on the inhale and scoop on the exhale. On the inhale, I'm going to have chest high. As we exhale, drawing navel in and scooping, we're going to lightly drop the chest to the floor. I don't want to go to stretch. I just want to lightly reach into it as I exhale. Inhale, we're rocking right back up, keeping the hands in place. On the next exhale, feel that slight scoop of the pelvis as we slowly start to drop the sternum to the floor a little lower. I still want to focus on that nice inhale, expanding through the midsection, exhale, drawing navel into spine, slightly scooping the pelvis. But we're also slowly reaching a little deeper to the floor on each one so that we can maybe start to feel a little bit of length and stretch through our shoulders. But as we're dropping down into our shoulders, we're also scooping, so you may also feel some light stretch into that low back as you draw the navel into spine and reaching the chest down. I'm less concerned about the stretch of the shoulders or the low back. I'm more concerned with feeling that expansion of our inhale into the side body, into the low back, and the slight and the drawing in of our belly on the exhale. And then we're going to change positions. Getting into more of a reverse sit. Palms are on the floor behind the hips. Elbows are extended fully without locking. And I want to get a little bit of an external rotation through the arms. So feel those elbow pits rotate out so that you also feel your chest kind of lightly open up towards the ceiling. And we're going to come right back into that breath, breathing into our crocodile breath, into the belly, into the side body, and into the low back. Try to maintain the height of your spine through the top of the head. So you're reaching up through that spine, elbows are spiraled out, chest is nice and open. Feel that breath, inhale, expanding out, exhale, drawing the navel into the spine. After 2 or 3 breaths, I want to start to allow that pelvis to move in the same way that we just did in the quadruped. So as you inhale into the belly, the pelvis is slightly rotating forward. As you exhale, drawing the navel in, you're getting a mild scoop of the pelvis. However, we're maintaining our grounding through our palms, spiraled elbows, open chest. So you're going to get this little bit of softening through the hips and the low back as you exhale. And as you inhale, pelvis is tilting forward, abdominal space is expanding in all directions. You should notice that you get a little taller on the inhale, and you shrink just a little bit on the exhale. I want to continue to focus on the breath, but we're going to add some other things around it. So we're still inhaling, expanding out, exhaling, drawing the navel in with this light tilting of the pelvis. And now we can start to play a little bit with our arms. So as we inhale, belly's opening, pelvis is tilting forward. We're spiraling the elbows out and feeling that nice opening up through the chest. As we exhale, drawing navel into spine, allow your elbows to rotate inwardly and your shoulder blades to start to round up towards your ears. So we're getting this nice rounded upper back. And since we're already scooping the pelvis on that exhale, we'll get some rounding of the low back as well. Inhale, we're going to spiral out, get nice and tall. Exhale, drawing that navel in as we round. Again, I'm less concerned about finding stretch. The focus is largely on the breath, but with each one, we're seeing where that breath will take us. How high will the shoulders come up to the ears? How rounded does the back get as we exhale completely? When we inhale, how tall can we get? How spread can you feel the chest open up? And how expanded out in that abdominal section can you feel? On the next one, as we come up to the top, we can relax our legs. You're welcome to let them cross, but we're going to stay grounded through the floor, through our palms. And I want to stay spiraled out so that we can do a little bit of neck work with our breath. So we're still breathing and expanding into that abdominal crocodile breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. Continue to allow that pelvis to move with your breath. I don't want to try to restrict the pelvis. So we're going to continue to feel our spine get tall and a little short on each inhale and exhale. With a nice inhale in, expanding out, now we're going to get into our neck mobility, checking our blind spots. So on the exhale, as you draw that navel in, you're also looking over your left shoulder. Inhale back to center, and then exhale looking over your right shoulder. I don't want to go to a maximum stretch right off the bat. I'm moving slowly, focusing on the breath first. Notice if there's any stretch in the neck related to your inhale and exhale as you turn your head. Is it more so on the right side or more on the left side? And with each one, we can very slowly squeeze a little bit more into that rotation, turning from the chin, seeing how much can you move that chin over the shoulder without going into pain. Inhale at center, exhale as you squeeze into that range of motion. We'll come back to center. And now we're going to do, keeping our head face forward, lightly dropping an ear on the exhale, one ear towards the shoulder, while lifting the opposite ear slightly towards the ceiling. So as you exhale, drop one ear, and the opposite ear, you're slightly lifting it up so that we get some traction into the side of the neck. Inhale as we come back to center. Exhale as we drop the opposite ear and then lift the opposite ear. Start light and small, and notice the grounding of your palms and that spiraled out elbows. Remember, I want those elbows rotated out, open chest, and lightly grounded through the floor so that the shoulders are a little bit engaged. That will help to draw out that little bit of traction into the neck. Again, inhale as you're in center, expanding into that crocodile breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine as you reach an ear up towards the ceiling. And then last little one for the neck, we're going to do some shallow neck rolls, allowing the chin to kind of move down to the chest. Now, shallow, I want to make sure that we don't go into stretch right off the bat. We're keeping it at a very small range of motion so that we can focus on the breath. And as we get into it, you can get a little bit deeper into that range of motion as long as it doesn't get painful or intense. So we're going to let our chin drop down to chest. Inhale on the exhale as you're drawing navel in. You're going to let your left ear roll to the left shoulder. Take a nice inhale in that position. On the exhale, allow your gaze to move up to the ceiling. On the next inhale to exhale, allowing the right ear to roll to the right shoulder. Inhale. Exhale, chin back to chest. And then we're going to do the same thing in the opposite direction. Inhale on our exhale, moving our right ear to the right shoulder. Inhale. On the exhale, eyes go to the ceiling. Inhale. On the exhale, left ear goes to left shoulder. On the next exhale, chin comes to chest. And now we can kind of slowly move through those 4 points, going back and forth. We don't need to take a breath on each one. Now that we've gone through it once, we can slowly start to move all the way through that circle with our breath, but our breath is still moving into that nice expansive breath, filling up that balloon. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. Go slow with the movement of your head. I want to stay soft in that space of the neck so that we can focus primarily on that inhale and exhale. And you can do 1 in each direction. You can do 2 to 5 in one direction and then 2 to 5 in the other direction. There's lots of options here, so we don't have to do it the right way. I want to be more exploratory here. Just kind of seeing, how does my breath feel as I move through these neck rolls, noticing where do I feel tension? Is it more on the right side of my neck and shoulder as I drop my head to the left? Or is it more on the left side as I drop my head down towards the right? And again, I want to kind of explore back and forth, going one direction and the other direction. until we get a good, 5 to 10 rotations in both directions. And then we're going to shift our legs into a V-sit position, getting nice and wide with our feet. I want to actively pull the top of the feet back towards the shin and actively reach the knees down to the floor. And the hands are still grounded behind us, similar to our reverse sit position, with the elbows spiraled out and the chest nice and open. And we're going to start with just filling up that space of the breath. If you are able to sit on your sits bones without using your hands, we can come back with our C shapes with our hands and press into our abdominal core and kind of check back in with our crocodile breath, giving a little bit of that physical cueing to feel if we're expanding out in all directions. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. If you are unable to sit on your sits bones, then just keep both hands down on the floor and just focus on filling up that space as best that you can. Eventually we'll get to where you're able to sit on your sits bone and you can start to use your hands more. After 2 or 3 breaths, we're going to go ahead and place the hands back down. Again, filling out into that crocodile breath. Get that nice expansion. Exhale, we're drawing navel into spine. And notice even with this breath, there's still a little bit of a movement of the pelvis. As you inhale, the pelvis is slightly rocking forward. As we exhale, there's a slight scoop. So it's okay to allow that movement of the pelvis to take place. Again, staying active with our ankles and active with our knees. Now we're going to add a little bit of movement in here. As you exhale, we're going to rotate from the kneecaps out and away, and I want to feel that spiraling action in the hip. Now I want to stay light with this to start, so I don't want it to be a major stretch, but I want to feel the entire thigh bone spiraling up inside that hip socket. We are not moving from our feet, we are moving from our thighs, rotating out on the exhale. On the inhale, we're bringing it back to center. And then on the next exhale, we're spiraling those knees internally. Again, feel that rotation of that thigh bone all the way up into the hip socket. Inhale, expanding out into our crocodile breath as the feet come straight up. Exhale, drawing navel into spine as the knees rotate out and away. And then the same thing coming internally. On each exhale, we're going to slowly squeeze further into that rotation so that we feel a little bit more stretch deep into the hip. I want to stay incredibly soft with the movement at the hip. I don't want this to be a massive stretch. I want it to be a very light, mild stretch in both directions. But we're slowly squeezing into it to see if we can rotate a little bit more on each exhale. Again, continuing to keep the feet pulled back towards the shins, and the knees are actively reaching down to the floor. If your knees are reaching down to the floor, you're probably going to notice that your quads are active and engaged. We're not squeezing the quads, we're reaching the knees, but the quads get engaged by that action. And now we're going to add in another movement. As you spiral the knees out, I want to, on the exhale, on your next inhale, we're going to point the toes. Point them lightly. I don't want to clench right now. On the next exhale, we're going to spiral the knees in, squeezing into our internal rotation. And on the next inhale, we're pulling the dorsum of the foot actively back towards the shin. So exhale as you spiral the knees out. Exhale, or inhale as you point. Exhale as you spiral the knees in. Inhale as you pull the feet back. I want to make this 4 distinct movements. I want to separate the movement of the feet from the spiraling of the knees. So I want to make sure we are spiraling as much as we can comfortably first before we point the toes, and then we are spiraling in as much as we can before we pull the feet back. And we'll do a good 5 nice slow spirals with our breath in one direction. And then we're going to reverse directions, but doing everything the same way. Exhale as you internally spiral the knees. Inhale as you point the toes. Exhale as you spiral the knees out. Inhale as you actively pull those toes, the dorsum of the feet back towards the shin. Again, continuing to breathe and expand out into that crocodile breath on the inhale, drawing navel into spine on the exhale. And then we're going to shift into our shin box. But to start with the shin box, I kind of want to come back into our inverted or reverse sit position. Palms are nice and grounded. So we're going to breathe into our crocodile breath. On our exhale, we're allowing our knees to rotate towards the floor in one direction, only going as far as we comfortably can without pain. Inhaling into our crocodile breath back at the top, and then exhale, going to the opposite side. I want to go slow with the breath. The first thing here is, can you get your knees to the floor without pain? You are allowed to slightly shift your hand position as you come up. One hand may want to slide forward a little bit so that you're more onto one side hand in one side shin box. And then just place that hand back down as you shift across to the other side. And then the opposite hand will come up off the ground. If you are unable to get the knee to the ground without pain, then this is as far as I want you to go with the shin box movements. And this right here, and only taking it as far as you can without going into the pain. Really focusing on the breath here and the range of motion that you can go to pain-free. This is the mobility work that we're going to work on, and eventually you will get to where your knees can touch the ground and you can sit into this side space, which will give you access to the rest of the shin box movements. But I want to think of this first, the windshield wipers of the knees, as being a portal to enter the rest of the shin box movements. And if you cannot get knees to the ground without pain, then you cannot enter the portal. You can't go into the rest of those movements. If you are able to get knees to the ground, then we're going to do some breath work from each side of our shin box. So I'm on my right side shin box. My right hand is on the ground. I want to ground through that palm, spiral that elbow out, and feel that nice light open chest to the ceiling. And we're going to come back and find our crocodile breath, expanding out in all directions. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. Again, feeling that pelvis slightly rotating forward on the inhale and slightly scooping as you draw your navel up and in on the exhale. After about 3 breaths, I want to change the focus of where this breath goes. Since we have our right hand down, our right side body is a little bit more open. And so that breath has a space to move into. Left side is a little bit more closed based on the position of the hips. So as you inhale, let's allow that breath to go more to the right side low back. And you can even feel that your spine kind of slightly move into it. You're getting a little bit of a C shape to the spine as you inhale, and then as you exhale, drawing navel in, we're going to compress through that palm and lift to the sternum as we get tall in the spine. And then our inhale, we're filling up into that side body space. Seeing if you can feel that maybe a light stretch associated with that inhale, moving out into the side body and into that low back area, specifically on the right side. After about 5 breaths, we're going to slowly shift across to the other side and do the same thing. So again, now we're grounding through that left palm, spiraling that elbow out, nice lightly open chest. Breathing into our full crocodile breath to begin with. Again, I want that full expansion in a balloon to all sides, noticing even that it's, the side that it's a little bit more challenging. We're still breathing specifically into this space for 2 or 3 breaths. Drawing navel into spine, feeling that pelvis tilting forward on the inhale, lightly scooping on the exhale. And after 2 or 3 breaths, now we're going to move into that left side space. Inhaling, expanding into that left side, allowing the spine to get a little C curve to it. Exhale as we draw the navel in. We're also lifting through the sternum as we ground through that palm, lifting our spine tall. And then inhale, filling up that side body space as our spine opens up to it. Exhale, getting nice and tall. With each inhale, we're seeing if we can slowly fill up a little bit more of that space. With each exhale, seeing how much can we draw that navel up and in, and how tall can we get in the spine. And then we're going to slowly transition back to the other side. Now I want to get into a little bit of forward fold work, modified pigeon. Right now I'm going to be less concerned about where I'm reaching. I can reach through the knee or I can reach straight ahead. I don't want to get overly focused. This is more explore. So we're going to inhale, filling up our crocodile breath. On the exhale, as we draw our navel into spine, we're just going to lightly let our hands slide forward. As you draw that navel in, not going to pain, going to, just where it feels nice and good. On the inhale, we're coming all the way back up, filling up that crocodile breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine as we fold. And let's get a good 5 breaths. Allow that inhale to inflate your spine, getting nice and tall. And that exhale, as you draw your navel in, your hands slide forward along the floor, seeing if you can reach a little further without forcing. And after 5 breaths, we're going to very slowly move back across to the other side. Doing the same thing. Inhale, filling up that crocodile breath. Exhale, drawing navel in as the hands slide forward, going shallow to begin with. I don't want to go super deep right off the bat. Inhale, filling up that spine, getting nice and tall. Exhale, drawing the navel in as our hands slide forward. With each one, we're going just a little bit deeper, but we're not forcing it. I am not concerned about the end range right now. I want to be mostly focused on, can I fill up this breath, expanding out with the inhale? Can I feel that navel draw in as I reach? You can also notice where in the hips, in the back, you feel tension and stretch. Is it different on this side compared to the other side? And then we're going to slowly transition back across to the other side. And we're going to do the same thing, but now we're going to hold our fold. So I do not want to go deep. I do not want to get a big stretch through the hips here. I want to get into a nice shallow fold that's not very deep, that feels comfortable, that I can stay in for a little bit. And we're going to breathe from this position. Because we are folded forward, it's going to be a little harder to breathe into the belly, but it should be a little easier to breathe into that low back. And that's where I want to bring in the focus. So as we're here, we're going to inhale, filling up the belly space, but really feel that focus of breath into the low back, opening up towards that back space. On the exhale, drawing navel into spine. Inhale, filling in that back space. After 2 or 3 breaths, as you exhale, you can let your hands start to slide a little bit further without forcing it. As you inhale, fill up that back space. If it slides your hands back again, that's fine. On your exhale, let the hands slide forward again. And we'll do 3 to 5 breaths in this position. And then we're going to bring it all the way up and across to the other side. And doing the same thing. So again, I don't want to go deep. Fill up that nice big crocodile breath. On the exhale, nice shallow fold. We're going to stay here. As we inhale, filling up our belly, our crocodile breath, feel that breath moving into that low back space. On the inhale, exhale, drawing navel into spine. We're not reaching further forward just yet. We're seeing how much can we fill in that space into our low back. Notice if there's a stretch there. If there is, great. I don't want it to be a massive stretch, but if there's a little bit of a stretch, breathe into that stretch. And after 2 or 3 breaths, we can start to reach a little forward on the exhale. On the inhale, if it slides your hands back, allow them to come back. And on the exhale, we're reaching forward. Again, I don't want to force this. I'm not looking for a massive stretch. I'm looking for a good inhale, exhale, expansion through my core. And after 2 to 3 breaths, we're going to bring it all the way back up to center. And now we're going to change and get into a different position. We're going to come up into a half kneeling position. So one foot is up, we're on our knee, and I want to have our back toe tucked underneath, tucked and loaded. So from this breath or position, if balance is an issue here, it's okay to have a staff or something that you can put your hand on to support your body. If your hands are able to be free, we can come back with our C-shaped hands around our midsection. And we'll take 2 or 3 breaths, filling up that balloon breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine. And we're going to notice the same quality of movement at the pelvis. As we inhale, expanding out, the pelvis is going to tilt forward. As we exhale, drawing that navel in, the pelvis is going to lightly scoop. Again, I want that back big toe tucked underneath so that you have a little bit of a load stretch at that big toe. And as we exhale, drawing navel into spine, we're going to start to move a little bit more into that scoop so that you can feel maybe a little bit of length and stretch through the front of the hip. And then as we expand out, pelvis will scoop forward as we get a little bit of a sway in our back. Exhale, drawing navel in as we get into that scoop. And what you may notice is that as you scoop, you not only get a little bit of a stretch through the front of the hip, but you also feel the big toe, arch of the foot, get a little bit of a stretch as well. And we'll get a good 5 breaths. Filling up, we're still breathing in all directions, but you're going to notice that that breath goes a little bit more forward since our pelvis is tilting, but I still want to feel some focus of that breath into that low back space. And as we exhale, drawing navel in, light stretch through the front of the hip. After 5 breaths, we're going to switch and do the same thing on the other side. So again, tuck that back big toe, placing both hands, if your hands are free, placing both hands around that abdominal core so that we have that nice cueing. As you exhale, you're squeezing those hands in. As you're inhaling, you're expanding out like a balloon into the hands. Drawing navel in on the exhale. Feel the pelvis slightly tilt forward on the inhale. Feel that scoop on the exhale. After our 2 or 3 breaths, we can start to accentuate that pelvis. As you inhale, allow that pelvis to tilt forward, getting a little sway in the back. As you exhale, drawing navel into spine, we're lightly scooping the pelvis to see if you can feel a little bit of load through the front of the hips. Notice if you also feel that back big toe and arch of the foot get a little bit of load and stretch as well. This does not need to be a big stretch. I want to be focused on the quality of the breath. Can I continue to expand through my abdominal core? Can I draw that navel into my spine on my exhale? Do I have good movement through that breath cycle? Or does it feel restricted in some way? And after our 5th breath, we're going to come all the way back down to the floor, laying on our back. We can start with our feet flat on the floor, knees bent. And again, making nice C shapes with our hands, placing those hands through that abdominal core. And I want to come back to kind of where we started. Feeling that inhale, expanding out in all directions. Exhale, drawing the navel into the spine. This is a good place to kind of notice, has it improved? Does it feel different from the beginning of the session? We've gone through a very good amount of breath work. Your breath may feel taxed. It may actually feel more challenging to expand out in all directions. But hopefully you're noticing that the areas that felt tight and restricted at the beginning of the session have actually opened up, and that you're able to get a little bit more breath volume in on the inhale, and you can feel that nice, good, full exhale all the way out. Now, we've been focusing on bringing that breath largely through our abdominal core. This is just one phase of our breath that we're focusing on. We can also work on bringing that breath up into the chest and ribs in the same fashion, in that 360 degrees, expanding out through the upper back, out through the side body, and through the chest. That I want to work on secondary to our abdominal core, but largely because breathing into the chest can stimulate feelings of anxiety and fear, especially if you are more prone to that. So I tend to be a little bit more sensitive and bring that breath work in after we've gotten real good at building our abdominal core breath. But since we're finishing up here, I want to bring a very light focus into the ribs. So we're still filling up that abdominal core, nice big balloon breath. But we can also allow a little bit of that breath to come up into our chest, into our ribs. But again, I want to be light and sensitive here. So as we inhale, allow that breath to expand not just forward into the chest, but out through the side and into that upper back space. If you want, you can allow your hands to fall down to the floor with the palms up and let your shoulders just soften and relax to the floor. This is a good place to kind of close eyes and just imagine that breath as a light energy in your body. It's expanding out into the abdominal core, but it's also shining some light into the ribs, expanding up, out the side, and through the upper back. And the only thing I really want to work on here, I don't want to work on a big, deep breath into the chest. I want to work on focusing on where you feel tension in that breath, especially on the inhale. Is there an area of your ribs, either front, side, or upper back, that feel tight and restricted? And wherever you're feeling that tension, just breathe lightly into that tension on the inhale. And as you exhale, drawing navel into spine, allow that tension to melt off the body onto the floor. We'll get good 5 to 10 breath cycles here. Again, I don't want to breathe in as fully as possible. I simply want to breathe lightly into tension and exhale, letting that tension go. Now, considering we've just done a fair amount of breath work and breath work at some depth into our body, you may feel a little bit more sensitive than usual. This might be a good time after we're done with this to journal a little bit, to have a little time just to process anything that might be coming up emotionally, to give it a little bit of a release. Journaling is a great place to focus. And for your last few breaths, go ahead and get a couple nice soothing deep breaths in, full exhales out. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes, and we'll very slowly get up. As we get up, I want to be slow because I want to make sure that there's not dizziness. So moving to the side, pressing slowly, coming up into a side sit, cross-leg sit, or inverted sit, and checking in with each step, making sure there's not a lot of dizziness. And if you're feeling good, then we can go ahead and get back up.